I'll start, okay, I'll start with a little self-introduction. My mom was an artist in the Bay Area, and she did oil painting and also did shows in Mendocino and San Francisco and Carmel. So that half of the family got me going with art. And my father did photography for decades, but not for art shows, but for family and travel pictures. He showed them to tolerant friends and to a family on what I thought as a child was an endless slide carousel. Then as I got older, I would follow him around with my camera trying to learn from him. I remember one time shooting fall colors with my parents in New England. And as you know, artists have different perspectives. So we were all, three of us, were all leaning over a fence, shooting from different positions and taking a shot of this so my mom could paint it, and a shot of my dad doing that, and me looking at the fall colors across the lake. And so as you know, in animal photography, which I also enjoy, we get a lot of wasted butt shots of animals running away. So my wife had a camera and she had her own perspective. Her perspective with the photo was best is what I call the butt shot. I don't have that shot because I'm too embarrassed, but you can imagine all three of us leaning over a fence and she got the one. So it doesn't have to be the ones that are all that interested in art that get the best shots. So my artistic interest is either genetic or learned behavior, assisted by a tolerant wife. And the tolerant wife is probably the most important of all of those. When I retired at 40 years, I decided to reinvent myself, had to find something to do because my career was pretty intensive. So I had about 5,000 photos in my computer, and I gleaned, those were gleaned from hundreds of thousands of shots I'd taken over 40 years. And so I decided to do more formally do photography and share some of my shots with others. So here I am. I titled the talk as "Get the Shot" based on my learning experiences, which I've had a lot of time and a lot of ones too things I shouldn't have done that I learned from. I'm sure your own learning curve, in your own learning curve, you already know many of the points I'm going to share. And what I'm sharing is not just for photographers, but sort of interesting. And I know you also are all photographers, because everybody is these days because of our cell phones. So I don't use a cell phone. This is my animal. So that's what I carry around with me when I'm hiking or when I'm on my motorcycle wandering around the country. Even if you know all these, it never hurts to hear from another experiences to reinforce your skills and just to enjoy some photos. So the rules of art, we all know there are regular rules and absolute rules. I'm sure you, under the category of absolute rules, there is one rule: keep your partner happy. They are crucial to our survival as artists. I mentioned my tolerant love, my wife, my partner. This is her. So this is a picture that explains her tolerance. This is what I call kaboom, which is a picture that is in the Kona coast. And that wave is about probably, or that splash is somewhere between 50 and 100 feet high. And we were going snorkeling. We were on a boat, and we rented a boat with the captain, and he took us out and wandered up the coast. And it was a very, very still day. But way off in the distance, I saw one wave that just seemed to go nuts, and I saw this from a long ways away. So on that way, I had my wife, tolerant wife, slow down there. So we stopped and bobbed, and we bobbed, and we bobbed, and nothing happened. So finally, after a significant period of time and her sort of looking to the water to see if she needed to make a deposit, we finally decided to move on to where we're going snorkeling. So we got the boat going again, because it does really better when you're in a boat moving than sitting and bobbing. So done with bobbing, went up, got the shot, or got the snorkeling, and turned around, came back, and of course I imposed upon her to go ahead and bob again. So what I had noticed is that as we were bobbing, there would be this kind of thing. We just bob and bob and bob, and finally we got the lift. And I could feel the whole boat was going up, at which time I knew a big boom was going to come. So the Kona boom happened with me. I got set up, took the picture, took one shot, and that's the shot. And I could have sat and bobbed for another 2 or 3 hours, but Karen sort of said no. So she's my tolerant wife. Another sort of interesting story, not related to this, but also about the people that help us, is there was a lady that visited one of my shows, and she told me how her husband had wanted to get an unobstructed shot in the cathedral, and this was a very busy cathedral with hundreds of people in it, and he couldn't get a shot because they were all in the way. So this is what good spouses or good partners do. Unbeknownst to him, she took it upon herself to help him get his shot. She told him to set up the tripod and his shot. Then in an authoritative voice, she announced that he was from National Geographic and requested they all move to the side so he got so he could get his shot. So she shoot him all to the side. They did agree, and they did, and he did, and he got his shot. So that's what we have to remember about our significant others, partners, or whoever is helping us out. However, always remember that they have an endpoint. For me, the endpoint is, Stephen, no more barns. And when that happens, I have learned that she really means it. So here's a couple of 3 barns that I've taken over time. This guy's on the border of Oregon, just past Oregon, past California on the Oregon border on 395. And it's not there anymore. So this was one of my motorcycle trips. I was wandering up on 395 and went zooming by that and slammed on the brakes, turned around, came back, and spent a half an hour getting the shot. And she would not have liked to have been, in fact, she would have on my motorcycle, but that's the way it goes. And then here is another one, old wooden one. And after 2 or 3 of those in a row and many stops, I've learned to move on, sort of. So moving off of that topic, we've got a buffalo. So I do travel photography, I do animal photography. This one is moving on to regular rules instead of absolute rules. The first rule is your shots. This one I call the portrait of a buffalo. And with this guy, he's fairly substantial. He's probably, I don't know, 1,000 pounds or whatever, big guy. Saw him way up on the hill, and he was probably half a mile or so away. So what I did was figured out where he was going, not where he was, because I didn't want to climb up the hill to get him. So he was way up on the hill, but I saw the trail went right by a tree and a little copse of grass down closer to me. So I went and set myself next to the trail that I knew he was going to be on. So I would be right here, and I knew he was going to be right there. And I was behind the tree like this, but I had my camera all set up, and I knew that as he was walking along and came out from behind the tree that I could get that shot. So I focused in on the grass that's right below his nose, and was ready for him with my tripod settings all set. And as he came down the trail, stuck his head out, I got one click. The one click is this one, and he then turned his head towards me and said, and he was the leader of the pack, so I figured that what he does, the rest of them is going to do. So I was grabbing my tripod and screaming behind the tree and taking off as he was looking at me. So one woof, and he was, and I was gone, not he was gone. And we also have another one about planning the shot. This one is sort of, I call it the wild horse peekaboo. It's a wild horse sports. It was up in Roosevelt Park up in North Dakota. And he was walking along behind a whole bunch of brush, and you can see the brush on either side of him. So what I did is focus on a spot where I saw a hole, and this is a long area of brush. And I focused on the grass right next to him, the tree right next to where I thought he would show up. Unfortunately, he padded along the path and showed up, poked his nose through. I took one picture, and then he saw me and instantly was gone. So the answer is on this one is you got to plan your shots, and you often only get one, and sometimes you don't get any and you run away. So that's rule number one. Regular rule number one. Regular rule number two, we'll get to that one. And the rule on this one is plan your shots, but always have your camera ready. And this was in Yosemite. It was a bobcat that just was walking along in the brush and popped out right in front of me. But I always have my camera with me, and I always have it set so I can take a picture quickly. And I keep my camera ready for a quick shot, and this means some to Lynn and some of the more formal photographers here, but if you keep it at an aperture in my computer or my camera, if you keep it in an aperture of f.8, it's called a sweet spot of depth of focus. So you can shoot quickly and you focus a lot with that one shot. And those of you that are on doing your cell phones, you don't have to even think about it. You just take the shot. So each camera has its own sweet spot, and I adjust the settings. Once I get a quick shot, if I can, then I can take more pictures, but I always have it ready for a quick shot. So that was rule number two. We're coming down to rule number three. When you see it, take it. This I call the snowlight tree. And it's a tree that was on the other side of Donner Lake, and it was early in the morning. It was a beautiful morning with the sun just starting to come up, and I was over there at around 5:30, 6 in the morning. I was looking for places to take pictures when the sun came up at that point, and I was in blue jeans, and I was in no snow gear and tennis shoes, and I saw that tree. So what I did was, obviously, with my camera with me, I got out in my blue jeans and my tennis shoes and climbed over an embankment in the snow and sludged through 4 feet of snow. It was all fresh powder, and took that picture. And then figured, well, now I've got the picture. Maybe I can come back and get some more. And my feet were pretty cold by that point. My legs were soaked. So I climbed out and back and got in my car, went back to the cabin, and I got some snow gear on. So then, of course, I had to drive back. So I drive back to where this is and sludge over the top to see the tree. And it was absolutely naked. There was no sun on it. There was no snow on it, because in that half an hour that I had spent, even though it was still really cold, in a half an hour, every piece of snow was gone. So turned around and went back to the cabin. So that's one of my pictures for when you see it, shoot it. And here's another one. Icicle Falls, same story. Saw the icicles as I was driving up to Badger Pass. My wife and I were going to go cross country skiing. So we were driving up the road in the snow. There was a big snow embankment, and there was traffic going in both directions. So as I was going up, I saw that on the side of the hill on the other side of the road, and just a whole big cliff of the icicles. So I went past it because I really didn't think I should be stopping in the middle of the snow. But I'm a mule, so I pulled up in the middle of traffic, pulled through the snow in the middle of the road in a 3-point turn, turned around, came down the hill, parked right next to the snowbank in my car. Couldn't get out because there was traffic. So I climbed through the window with my camera. Then I climbed up the hill in the snow, slipping and sliding up the rocks, because this shot was a little ways up. So I skidded my way up the hill and took that shot. Then I figured, well, maybe later I can get some more shots. So I came back down, did another illegal U-turn with a few words and epithets being thrown at me, I believe. Couldn't quite hear them well. So anyway, did another 3-point U-turn in the middle of the road, went back up the hill, went to ski. and it was horrible skiing. So all icy and slippery and slimy. So did another U-turn, came back down after that, and came down to the site, and there was not a single icicle on the whole thing. All of the snow that was on the trees was gone, and all the icicles had melted. And this was, it couldn't have been more than a half an hour, 45 minutes in that turn time. So when you see the shot, take the shot. Got another one. Wooden steed. Slightly different story. Was hiking in Yosemite and hiked up past this thing, and it looked like a nice, interesting log. And we climbed up 1,000 feet beyond it, and probably another mile or so. Came back down. Was silly enough not to stop and take a shot. Went down the hill, and then about another mile down the hill with this kind of steep, I turned around and told my wife, "Honey, I got to go get that shot." So then I hiked back up the hill, 1,000 feet, 1,000 feet in a mile to get this one. And this one I call my wooden steed. And I put him in some shows next to the horses because it looks like a horse. Sold that one a time or two. This is another category of pictures. Go where others are not going. This picture was taken in the Olympic Peninsula, and I call it the Olympic Peninsula Tumble. And what I was doing was hiking along a trail where everybody was going to the big falls over here. So I don't go where people are going, I look other places. So I'm looking at the side and saw this. So I climbed up the side of the river, took, shoes off, wandered up the thing in my full feet until I got to a spot where I could put my tripod down in the water and get the shot and get out of the water as quick as my full feet could get me there. And this is a actual 3-piece shot where I took 3 different shots at different exposures. And so you can get an exposure for the water, you can get an exposure for the dark places, and you can get an exposure for the whole picture. And I merged those together in Photoshop. The colors are what I saw, but it just merges them so you can get all of that into one picture. I've seen pictures before where I've seen 1,000 pictures all melded together and covering a whole wall. I haven't gone quite to that extent, but 3 is a pretty good number for me. I've done a few 5s. So it's fun because you can get all the details, even if you look under the log up in the middle, you can see the detail underneath it. You can see the details of the rocks, but the waterfall isn't washed out. And so that's how I do that one. But again, don't go where people go where they aren't. This is another one that is a don't go where the people go. They're all up on a trail way up above the waterfall. And of course, I see the waterfall down below and I see the log in it. And it's sort of a steep trek to get down there through this grass, so all the stuff that's on the side of the waterfall. But I slipped and slid and climbed the rocks and got down to the bottom and again, put my feet in the water and took the picture of the log, which was pointing to the waterfall and focusing as such to do that. And so that's the kind of work that you have to do. I had an interesting story at my latest show. I did a showing at the Kalani show, and a lady came up to me, and she was a teacher, but she had been disabled. She had a bad head injury, concussion, and couldn't teach anymore. She told me about how she knew that falls, and she had taken pictures and taken her kids on the trail that's up above that, and she was looking down at this site. And it meant a lot to her because she was taking the kids, it was her teaching, it was little kids, and they were hiking the trail, and she shared the time with them. So she saw this picture and wanted it, but didn't have the money to do so because she was unemployed at this point on disability. So what she did is talk to her mom, went back to her house, had to figure out if she had a place for it. And she moved things around, came back with money that she had scrambled to get together. And how I word this, I told her, it's yours, I give you a big teacher's discount. And so she did buy it, it is on her wall, and that's sort of the kind of thing I like to do. It just makes it, I don't know, warm and cuddly. And I just told her, when you're feeling stressed and when you're thinking about those kids, just take your mind to sit on that log and enjoy that waterfall. That's why I like art. And this is a picture that says, hello. And you can see where I'm sitting. That's on the half dome. and it sort of drops about 3,000 feet below my feet. And most of you aren't as stupid as me, so you won't do this kind of thing. But take risks to the level that you're comfortable with. And again, emphasizing none of you are as stupid as me. So this is a shot that could have been taken with a tripod or with a remote, but it wasn't. And it's also not a selfie. And again, selfies are important for me to emphasize, as I asked someone to take it when I waved. So I was sitting out there, gave my camera to somebody, they went over to the other side and took the shot of me sitting up there. But not a selfie. I don't do selfies for good reasons you'll understand a little later in this talk. Here's the reason. This is Horseshoe Bend, north of Phoenix, and it's a beautiful site, but there's a bunch of rocks that are right in front of that. And this area here, right there, is a big rock outcropping. And it's also about 3,000 feet down. And you can see here, that's about a 30-foot boat sitting on the beach right down here. And so it's way down there, and there's a big rock in front of it. So what do? You get out on the rock and you get to the edge and you put the tripod between your legs. And then you lean out and you take a picture. And then you move back and get back off that picture. And this is the reason you don't do selfies, because a lot of people, not a lot, but enough, have done selfies. So you can no longer get to that point because they put a big fence, because as they're taking their selfies and backing up, they decided to take a tumble. So again, if you're not as stupid as me, don't take selfies next to cliffs, and that's that story. And sorry. These are another couple of shots that you probably won't do. One was the buffalo. Don't think you're going to do that one. And this is probably another one you aren't going to want to do. This is a diving picture. I scuba dive. And you can see the big shark right in the front with his eyes looking at me. And you can see the one laying underneath him looking at me. And then if you look more closely, you'll see that in the background is a third shark that makes the others look like little minis. And so I'm about 4 feet away from the closest shark, taking my picture with my underground, my camera. And 6th rule, just because it's pretty doesn't mean you should touch it. It's sort of like poison oak in the fall. It's beautiful. If you want to take pictures of it, go for it, but don't touch it. Well, this is a sea crate, and it's probably one of the most deadly snakes in the world. And it's fortunately has a really, really teeny mouth. So if you want him to bite you, you take your pinky and you stick it in his mouth and he'll bite you. But his thing is to get, small fish and immediately paralyze them, because he can't chase them. So he has to immediately kill them on the spot. So it's one of the most deadly venoms in the world. Another interesting story about these is on another diving trip, not this one, but another one, I had looked over my shoulder. My wife and I were diving together at that time, and there were a bunch of snakes behind us. Well, the snakes have to go to the top to get air, and then they go down and fish, and then they go back up to the top to get air. But in a learned behavior, at least in the place where we were doing the diving, they were getting air out of our bubbles. And they would follow us. And I looked over my shoulder one time and saw about 8 of them right behind, right there. But they're not interested in me. They're just taking a breath and going back down. It saved them the big trip to the top and all the work to get to the bottom. And we were at about 50 feet of water, so it was a lot of work. So that's an interesting story about those guys. Learned behavior. This one is called lionfish, and it's beautiful. It's exquisite. And when you get close to it, it shakes. And all the fins wiggle. And they do that for a reason. It's a warning. because they are very, very poisonous also, and you do not want to touch them. So you can get close enough to get pictures, but don't get any closer than that and don't mess with them. They won't attack you because they don't have to. They are the top predator in that area. Here's another one that I took at night. You can see the photo, but in all different colors, and they are all beautiful, and they all shake when you get close to them and say, go away. Sort of like a rattlesnake, makes a noise, you make a noise, and nothing bothers them, except big fish can eat them. Big groupers do. This is another pretty one. This is a fire urchin, looks beautiful, but don't touch it because you feel like your hand's on fire for about a week. So you get close enough to get the picture, but you don't want to bug it, touch it, move it, whatever. Then we've got undersea bling. This is a crinoid, which is actually a organism that curls up in a ball in a protective thing, but it also, if you mess with it, it's not severely poisonous, but you'll have a good rash for a while if you touch it. So if you do anything with it, you take a little metal stick and just move it around a little bit. But generally, underwater, we try to leave everything alone. Sometimes the dive professionals will move it aside with one of their little pointers because inside of them, they'll often find little tiny shrimp. And it's sort of fun to see these little teeny critters underwater inside this protective crinoid. This guy is called a scorpion fish for good reason. You don't want to mess with him either, but you can see the color and the camouflage of him is just amazing. But keep your distance. He won't attack you. Again, doesn't have to, because if you touch him, then you've got trouble. One more for fun. You'll see the one on the white one, and the rule on this one is keep your eyes open for surprises. Probably most of you see the white one because he stands out a little bit more against the coral. But I wanted to get a good picture of him, so I took that picture I took, and then I moved to the front and took a picture of him, and then I was going to move around to his other side towards his tail so I could get sort of a shot showing from the rear. But that's about the time I noticed the second one right at his tail. And I was trying to get in close, and you can see that one's even camouflaged much better. I don't know if you can see him there, but he's definitely in there. And I'm sneaking around the fish and saying, oh no, back off. So you keep your eyes open for surprises. And that's pretty much anywhere where you're taking pictures. That can be the buffalo, that can be anything. And this one is what I call be patient and follow your picture until it gets where you want it. This guy is running all over the place, totally nuts. I tried to focus on him. I could not get a picture of him. So I just waited. And he went and sat down, and I took the picture, and then he got up and he was going again. So this is called laid back lemur. And this one, had to wait for it. This donkey or whatever else we might call him, and the horse are friends. And they were wandering around in the field of yellow behind us. But it wasn't really a good picture. So I was watching them grazing away on all the yellow flowers, and I just waited and waited and waited. And finally, this particular picture came up, which eliminated the view of the donkey or whatever's feet and legs, and you can see the placement. So this one I call "Don't Be a Horse's." So that's that one. So wait for your shot to come where you want it to be. This is another wait for the shot. This little boxfish was behind all this coral, and I saw him about 10 or 15 feet away, but he was heading in the direction. So instead of me framing him, I waited for him to frame himself. So you can see he just swam into that little hole, took a little pause, I took a little shot, and then he took off. So set yourself up and wait for them to come to you. Same story with this one. These, this is my Nemo shot. all the white was just waving all over the place. And he's going back in and burying himself in it, clownfish. And the reason they do that is because they coat themselves in the exudate of the anemone. And then it protects them because the anemones sting and they can get in there and they coat themselves in it, and then you don't want to touch them. And a lot of fish won't do anything with them because they're coated in that. But they also protect it because they hide in it, and you don't reach into that thing, or otherwise you're going to have some trouble. And generally, as divers, we try to avoid gloves. So, particularly in this kind of setting, so you can't just go shuffling around and try to get the shot. So as I'm doing this and he's doing this, finally you wait for the shot to happen and you take the shot. Next rule, I think this is number 9, and I really hate this rule. Get up early. That is not my favorite time. There we go. This is Yosemite Falls reflected. I got up at about 5 in the morning and had sort of sized out where it was and what time sunrise was going to be. And I was in the water at sunrise. Again, very cold, barefoot in the middle of a very cold river, and had to wade out a ways up to the knees or so with my tripod, set the tripod up in the water, took the picture. And just a few minutes after that, the green of it is gone because it was one light coming down through the valley and just hit the reflection just right. So I shivered my way back to shore and was happy with what I got. Firefall. They used to have firefalls in Yosemite where they made a big fire bonfire and poured them over the edge, and everybody around the bottom watched it and watched the flames go down. It was a really fun thing, particularly as a kid, because we used to camp there all the time. So for this shot, the 10th rule is look for another angle. So everybody, because it's a known phenomenon, it only happens 1 week a year in February. It's packed. You actually have to make reservations to park on the road. And so anyway, I managed, before they were doing the reservation thing, and there were hundreds and hundreds of people all around. There were hundreds and hundreds of people all around, and they're all on the edge of the river and taking pictures and trying to shoot between each other. So that's how you get another angle. So how did I do that? I didn't get in the water. I didn't get behind somebody. I didn't go farther away. I went up in a tree. So I climbed the tree, got out on the branch over the river, took this picture, which is away from where the clan was below. Because as I looked down, it was head, all elbowing and butting each other, trying to get the one shot. Because it's very transient. What it does is it starts from one side and it just advances along the valley. And then it hits the waterfall and it's a fleeting shot that then is gone. And so it's worth getting, but it's a lot of work. This was also one of those 5 in the morning shots. So got to get a spot. These are what I call wild brothers. And this is rule number 11, let them come to you. And that sort of holds for the buffalo that I talked about earlier, and let them come to you. If you go trying to get pictures of these guys, you'll never see them. I know because I tried a bunch of times to follow them, to get to them, and every time I go this way, when I saw them, they'd be 150 yards over that way, and I'd get the butt shots. But in this particular picture, I heard them in the brush on the other side of the ridge. So what I did was walk parallel to where I could hear them, and found a spot that I thought they might come up. I hoped they'd come up if I was really quiet. So I'm tiptoeing along on the other side. And I get up to there was a little swale like this. And so I walked up to the swale on a quiet little road, dirt road, set up my tripod, but I set it on a swivel. So I can swivel it this way, or I can swivel it this way, hoping they would be dead on. Well, fortunately, they came up right in front of me. I heard them coming through the brush. I was pre-focused on the grass, which right at the one's nose. So I was all pre-set up, took the shot. They heard the shot, they saw me, and they were immediately over the hill again. So set yourself up, and that's a one-off. You get 2 shots. And this one is lion twins, and we went to them but they were probably 25, 30 feet away from the Jeep. But what I was doing at this point was I was standing in the back seat with my head sticking out the top and a sandbag on top of the Jeep, and I had my camera all set up, so you could get that shot. But if you step out of the shot or out of the Jeep, then they're on alert and you're game. So stay in your Jeep, but find a way to get the shot. Tanzania, same story, quick shot, again from a Jeep, and sticking my head out with a photo, and got that picture. What I like about the picture, I mean, obviously I love the cheetah, but the way he blends in with his background and very camouflage, and you know what he's looking for. So that's another one where you do not get out of the Jeep. And there's a mom and me shot, also a wild horse. This was over in Nevada. And this one, they're a little more amenable to you getting closer to them. They won't come right to you, but they are less spooked because they see more people coming through there. But the ones in North Dakota just would disappear if you got anywhere close enough to take that. But, always fun to see those over so close by, just on the other side of the room. This one is probably too close. So you like close-ups, but not that close. This was in Cuba, was diving, and this is a place where the crocodiles come up into an area where they encourage them to show up, some of the boat guides, and obviously you can see you get in the water with them, but I don't get quite that close. This guy saw the guy with the camera, and he's got one of these big cameras like this with these the little things hanging called the flashes. Well, that crocodile thought his flashes were chicken legs, and he came and hit the camera, knocked the guy back. So this is another one where I'm more stupid than you, because I was in the water with those guys. And this one is back to my buffalo, 12-year-old. Try some sepia or black and white conversions. And this is, when you look at it, it's a much different picture than the other one. And some people love the one with the color, and some people love the one in black and white. So play with different colors and conversions, and you use totally different effects, and they can be complemented with different mattings and framings based on the black and white nature of it. This is the picture you just saw a few moments ago. It sort of changes the whole nature of the picture just by going black and white. And some people will do mixes where they'll do some color in certain spots, but I'm not that sophisticated to do that yet. Next roll. And this is number 13, but since it's an unlucky number, we'll call it the last roll, the baker's dozen. Remember that sometimes it's the color that makes the picture. And this is, honey, I bought the pink one. And tried to sell it at Halloween on Mother's Day. But it's in Cuba also. And they have, these are taxis. And they're worth in Cuba in today's dollars somewhere around $100,000, $150,000, because with the car comes the license, and the license is the government saying, yes, you can have this car if you pay us this licensing fee. So they're all Americans for the most part, old American cars, but if you look underneath the trunk or underneath the hood, they're going to be a Yugoslav, transmission, a Russian engine, a little bit of barbed wire, and a little bit of cocaine. So they're unbelievably beautiful. If you don't look too close at the thing, they look wonderful. But they are definitely a mixed bag. They don't want you to get anywhere near them because they're their businesses, and it's a huge expense. And the people that own them are the rich people in Cuba, and because of their business. And so with these, I was trying to get close, and I was getting some disgruntled looks. But I happen to have a '65 Chevy, and I happen to speak Spanish. So the next thing you know, I'm sitting on the ground by them, taking pictures and talking with them. And that's sometimes you have to play whatever cards you can do to get the picture, because nobody else was getting that picture up that close unless they had a huge telephone. Another the color makes the picture. That's in Peru. And so that was the Peruvian market. And I don't know what your time frame is now, whether you're pushed to go or move on. If you want me to continue, I have a few fun shots. I'm open to questions. I'm also, we can wander around and look at these other pictures if you want. The pictures here are some that you saw on screen, but also they're framed in different ways. Some are done in the canvas wraps. I've got some metal prints. And just so it shows a variety of different effects you can get with these kinds of pictures. This guy was in Hawaii, and there's a big yoga retreat there. And the gate is right to the front of the car in that fence. And so I was driving along in Hawaii and saw that truck, and obviously it needed a picture. So this is one where I can imagine the worker many, many years ago driving in his truck along the road, totally exhausted after working in the hot sun all day, parked by the resort, or not resort, but the retreat, walked, opened the gate, walked in, and never came out of it. So that's my story. I don't know what the real story is, but that's what I would tell you. That's the same one. This is a nighttime shot, and you can see the stars, the Milky Way in the background. This one I did a light painting. It's in Tahoe. Making a large amount of light you can see in the background on the water line. That's South Shore. So I'm on North Shore shooting towards South Shore, and did long exposures. But if you do a long exposure, then you sort of wash out the other stuff. So what you can do is pull out a flashlight and use light painting. So this is a light painting shot that lets you take a fairly long exposure of the night sky, and then one real quick across it, and you get the foreground into the picture also without just blowing it away. And that's sort of a fun thing I'm playing with. And this is the ICU picture. And that grouper is probably 400 pounds maybe. And it's just fun. I love the color. I love the eyes looking at each other, because they definitely eyeballing each other, and you can see the grouper's eyeballing me. So it's sort of a fun picture. And this is a closed anemone with the clownfish in it. When it's out, you saw what it was before. It's all spread out. And then if it's disturbed, then it will close up. And it will close up to the point where even all of the rest of the fronds sticking up will go back down inside. And then often clownfish will go back down inside also. I did not disturb this guy, okay? He was disturbed already. So he closed up. I saw that sitting there. It just flashes that bright red color at you and says, come on and take a picture. Antelope Canyon, light shaft. Beautiful spot on an Indian reservation. And what it does is there's a 10-minute period where there's a hole at the top of the canyon, and the light comes across and it shoots that light down. And if you are serious enough that you want to get that good picture, you pay extra for the photography tour, because what they do is they close the canyon on either end about 20 feet away from where this is, and don't let anybody else in except photographers. So you pay the extra, you have to have the gear that proves you're a photographer. So since my wife wanted to go with me, I gave her my old camera, and she carried that, and I carried my beast and took that picture. And it's just, you can see the light moving across the canyon inside, and then it's gone. So it's just just a few minutes of that. And in order to get the lighting effect with the light coming in, they will actually take a handful of sand and throw it up in the air. And that gets the dust in the air, which then lets that light shaft. If you ever get a chance to hike the Antelope Canyon, definitely worth it. It's not a hard hike, it's just flat through that canyon area, looking at beautiful rocks and colors. This is what I call splashback. I just like this one because of the funky stuff the water was doing that day. And that was in Hawaii. That's in the Sinai Peninsula. And this lady was our guide there. And we did a tour where we went on camels into the Sinai where all Bedouins were. These are Bedouin people, but we had to pay for the tour, we had to pay for the food, and the hotel that helped us arrange this, they made plenty of food for the whole tribe, I believe. So, because we, a piece of chicken and a piece of lettuce or something, and then these big platters of food showed up. So we know where all that food went, and it was a kick, but riding in the middle of nowhere on camels, how do I word this? Exhilarating and stupid, because I was there with my kids and my wife, and we're riding camels off in the desert in Sinai Peninsula. Underseen buffalo arrangement. That's the kind of stuff you also see. That's a crinoid and a variety of other corals, and so it just, you can see some beautiful things under there. That's why I wanted to share those with you. And I was told you hadn't seen any diving pictures, so I opted in. And that's the final one. That's all purple. And that's just a close up with the reflections in it. But I had to put that one in because my wife's favorite color is purple. So there you go. So that's the talk. So, got any questions?
Yeah.
I will tell you the answers or make up one.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's been fun. When you were talking about the colors, make the point,
Mhm.
and you had the cars. So did you go in with like Photoshop and change the
No,
colors?
no,
or
I
did that
don't
right?
do Photoshop.
Oh, okay.
The
So
only
Yes.
Photoshop is occasionally I will use it to crop. I usually I pretty much use it to crop all the time. On occasion, I will increase in intensity if I need to. It looks washed out, but I do very little Photoshop. I don't like it. I was originally a film camera guy, so you couldn't Photoshop. In fact, the pictures of Africa, I had something around 120 rolls of 36 film, and I did not know whether I got a single picture. You didn't know until you developed them, and then you throw it out, and you throw it out, and you throw it out, and most of them get thrown out, and then you pick them. What's nice about digital cameras, the photography folk knows, you can take a bunch of pictures and throw out the garbage, and you can throw it out right in place, and then I do a second throw out by putting it in my computer and blowing it up a little bit, and then eject a whole bunch more. So, like I mentioned, I had 5,000 in my camera, and I took at least 250,000 or more pictures to get those 5,000. And some of those were kept just because they're family and memories. And then there's the ones that I say, hey, these are good, and I want to develop them, or at least keep them in my portfolio. Question?
I apologize that you leave for a little bit earlier, and I didn't hear.
I'm not going to do the speech all over
No,
again.
no. I'm going to ask a question you might have already
Please do.
known, but I'm wondering, have you ever worked on assignment for magazines, or do you sell any of your stuff in magazines?
I have entered contests, but I have not, well, other than yours here, I have not won. And I've looked at doing that. The issue is there's a whole bunch of people that take beautiful pictures out there, and it's a lot of competition. And I'm not in this to make money on it. I'm in this because I enjoy it. And yeah, I've submitted things to shows and things online stuff. And I don't know where it would come in.
Steve will be in the Placer Artists Tour in Granite Bay, just so you know. So come out and see his work in November.
We'll have ones you see here, unless I sell them. We'll have ones I have here, but a whole bunch of others, and some that are on this show, and then I have a bunch that I'm also going to be showing. Any questions? Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah.